Hi everyone, my name is Toluade. Welcome to Manifest Hub, where we help young adults and young adult leaders build and cultivate and engage in young adults ministries. Thank you so much for coming back. If you're part of the Manifest Hub family, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Click on the subscribe button and get acquainted with us. Get comfortable. And if this is your first time, welcome. Just take a seat. We know you're going to really love the Manifest Hub family. You can even introduce yourself in the comment below and say, hey, first timer, blah blah blah. Anyway, so today's video is going to be about why young adults are leaving the church. So I think this one would be more for church leaders and pastors, because I feel like a lot of times church leaders are really just trying to cater to young adults in their church, but they just don't know how. They're trying their best, but maybe it just doesn't seem to be working, or it's not effective. And I believe that this will help a lot of church leaders, a lot of pastors to really understand what the heart of the matter is, and which is the matter of the heart. Anyways, just forget I said that. Anyway, so yeah, why are young adults leaving the church and what can you do about it? So I actually really struggled with doing this video because it's been on my heart actually for a long time, because I've noticed just in different churches that I've been to, I've seen just this disconnect between the young adults and their pastors. And I think both sides, to be fair and honest, I guess both sides are doing their best, but sometimes, especially where there's such a wide generational gap, it seems like that gap just never gets filled and everybody just gets frustrated. It can be really frustrating when there just seems to be that disconnect and just trying to just live and exist or coexist in one church. So this video is really here just to help both sides. And if you're young adults, like I always say, just extend grace to your pastors. Keep, continue to extend grace. And pastors also, of course, extend grace to your young adults and don't despise their youth. So yeah, let's get started. Number one, why are young adults leaving the church and what can you do about it? So these are things that I've seen, I've experienced, and over the years, and also maybe heard also young adults talk about it a lot. Just by virtue of talking to young adults, these things come up quite a lot. So I want to believe there are real issues that need to be addressed, and I really hope this will get us started in a conversation about it. So yeah, number one, lack of support. That's one of the reasons why young adults leave the church or leave your church and maybe go somewhere else. So it could be in different ways, in cash and in kind. So in cash, it could be things like maybe you want to thrive in young adults ministry, you want them to do this and that. I know pastors are just very excited, especially when they see a new idea. They just want to see it come to life in their church, but a lot of times I feel like they don't quite reconcile that vision with the amount it's gonna cost to bring it to life. So a lot of times they sell this vision to young adults. It's popping, it's great, it's a good idea, but they don't support it with cash, or they leave the young adults there to just go figure it out. And that can get really, really frustrating for young adults and even young adult leaders. As a past young adult leader myself, just as a person in general, I don't like to figure out money. I just don't. I'm still growing in that area of trusting God with money, when it comes to ministry. So that's an extra stress for me. I really just hate to have to deal with that. So young adults don't want to have to strive to get funds for a vision that a pastor wants them to bring to life. It's just too much stress. Number two, 1B, I guess, in kind. So in kind could be when, young adults take initiatives and you don't acknowledge it, you don't appreciate them, and just little things. You don't acknowledge them for their work. I've heard of cases where some young adults will say, yeah, they do something and then they just feel like some other spiritual leader came and just took the glory for it. It's that can be very demoralizing for anybody in general. So acknowledge people's work. Millennials just like to be acknowledged for their work. It doesn't have to be any bells and whistles, but they just want you to they want to know that they're appreciated wherever they are. And also, when even when they make mistakes, it's fine. Just you can still acknowledge something good about it, and then you address the mistake with truth and grace, like I always say, and use it as an opportunity to mentor them or pour into them. So yeah, lack of support, number one. Number two, why young adults leave the church: lack of loyalty. This is kind of related to number one. This is the way I could best, I guess, capture this. It usually shows up when appreciation is not commensurate with effort. So think of how many times our own this issue, like a lot of young adults that complain about this issue are more those in the creatives, like on the creative hub or environment or whatever. Like, so think of your drummers, instrumentalists, think of your, what do you call them? Think of your maybe media-ish people or whatever. But this is mostly like instrumentalists. And to be honest, like I'm one of those ones too. I don't really believe in paying instrumentalists. If you're an instrumentalist, do not come for me. That's another conversation in itself. So maybe we'll do a video about that. I don't really believe in, but I do believe that skills like that take a while to master, and people should be appreciated for it, no matter how small. So also even singers. So think of how many times in your church where like there's been the singer that's just they're growing, and it seems like they're doing great things, and they want to, that's their maybe vision, their ministry, like they're called to be a singer. And think of how many times you've kind of downplayed them, and then you invite some big name. Granted, yeah, a big name is a big name, but I always want to remind ministry leaders and even young adults that are planning conferences or events that, hey, these big names, they didn't just wake up and become big names. Somebody poured into them. Somebody gave them an opportunity. Like, think of Sinach. Like, Pastor Chris gave her an opportunity, and she now became this big name that everybody's paying like thousands of dollars for to come minister for like 20 minutes. So pour into your own small names, like that. From there, somebody else will see them and invite them. Somebody else will see them and say, oh, come minister in our church, come pour into our young adults. So a lot of young adults, so especially those in the creative, just don't feel like their pastor does not have that loyalty to them, like, or supporting them and their gifts and their skills. So I want to say that. And this is also one thing I've seen when even when these young adults are invited to participate or to minister, I usually find sometimes that the honorarium is not, how do I say this without coming off somehow? The honorarium, I get it. Honorarium is supposed to honor the gift of God upon people's life, but it feels more like, here, we're just doing you a favor than honorary, which I just feel like there's just something wrong with that. And it's not that the money is not there, because when there's a big name, we shell out that 25K or 50K, but to our own people, maybe we'll give to a check of like $100. Like, that it just seems weird. So I just want to encourage us as church leaders to just be more cognizant of those things. Really pour into our own people, encourage our own people, support our own people, and understanding that when they become big, they will never forget these people that's push them up from the very beginning. Like, these stars don't really remember all these new fans. Now they remember people that helped them when they were nobody, right? So I would say that just leave that alone. Number 3, why do young adults leave the church and what can you do about it? Number 3, I would say, is lack of trust in their abilities. So when you just don't, you can't commit things into their hands, or you feel like they're not, they can't do it, or they're just not. So you just don't give them responsibilities, or you just kind of how do I say this? Yeah, you don't commit things in their hands. The one I can remember, or one I guess instance in the scriptures I can remember, is Jesus and his disciples. They followed him for a while, and then he showed them how to do things, and then he let them do it, I think, while he watched, and then there was a time where he sent them out on their own. So understanding that your young adults, you've been pouring into them all these years, and they've been, organizing things in your presence, and they've been doing okay or doing well, some of them. So, when they actually want ownership on something, trust them, trust their abilities. Even if they make mistakes, let them make the mistakes and then come back and you do a lessons learned with them and let them figure it out. When young adults want to take ownership on stuff, they're not saying they don't value your opinion. They just want you to be able to trust them. They just want to know, like, hey, my pastor trusts me, our pastor trusts us. So trust in their abilities, and also remember these are adults, like they're young, but they're adults. So remember, some of them are directors at work. They lead a team of like 10 people, right? They manage people at work, right? So they have some skills, right? So just trust them in that regard. It could be in teaching a small group, it could be in handling a small project, it could just be in just little things, right? So commit things into their hands to also groom their leadership abilities. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, in why young adults leave the church and what you can do about it. Number 4 is kind of related-ish to number 3, lack of mentorship, lack of intentional mentorship. So I didn't want to forget some notes that I put down. I was saying, especially for those that know they have the call to ministry, many think young people don't want to be accountable, which is not true. Young people just don't want another parent. They go looking for career mentors and career coach. So in ministry, in the place of their spiritual lives, they do need a mentor too. It's just they just don't want to feel like somebody is lording their own ideals over them. Like what a mentor does, a mentor coaches you. Even when you make mistakes, they're not going to force your hands. Like they just, like, at the end of the day, it's still your decision. You make that decision, and then when you make that mistake, they come back and then they correct you on it, right? But they expect that you've learned something. So young adults definitely like want mentors, and they look out for mentors. A mentor can be different things at different times. Even if these young adults are unwise and immature, you can only correct it when they're close. So this is one thing that I think about a lot, even when I'm dealing with younger people, where sometimes they're just so annoying. But like, I just remember that, hey, you can't fix these things, you can't correct these things when they're far away, when maybe you've alienated them, or they feel like they can't be real with you. So yeah, let them talk, and then you have a teachable moment with them. So yeah, let's remember Moses to Joshua and Caleb generation. One thing I always also want to say to church leaders is that if you notice right now, the gap keeps getting bigger between the current church leaders right now and like the people, the next people that they're supposed to pass the torch to. The gap keeps getting bigger, and if we're not careful, it's going to be a situation, a story of like where the UK is at right now. Like, a lot of young adults think like church is for old people. So if we don't groom our young adults that are supposed to be taking the church, if we don't groom the next generation, there isn't going to be a next generation to pass the torch to. So a lot of that really lies on the current generation to just, what can we do to just do better and figure out what we can do in order to just pass this scripture, this gospel that so many have died for and given their lives for, to be able to pass it on to the generation, and understanding that the way they're gonna do it is gonna be different from yours, and that's fine as long as they're not deviating from the scriptures. I think that's one thing that's really important. Number 5, why young adults are leaving your church and what you can do about it. Number 5 is what I personally have a grunt about this. It's something that's just really been on my mind a lot, and again, when I remember or when I see it, and sometimes it just kind of like gets my knickers in a knot. I'm just like, hey God, like at the end of the day, this is your church, so you know what's best, and just help us to figure it out. So number 5 is when the leadership or board of trustees do not reflect the church demographics. So here's an example. I wrote it down. Your church is 50 to 70% young adults, but 100% of all your board of trustees are individuals over 50. Your church or workers team or serve team is 80% female, but your board of trustees is 5% or even less than 5% female, and the rest are male. When you think about those things and you look at it, like, you can start looking at your church right now. And even if you're younger, that's maybe start thinking about it. Even as a church leader, look at it and say, and this is not all churches, not to say like this happens at all churches. Like, I know some churches that have been really working on it, and I know some are still working on it right now. So I think it's just something like as a leader to just have in mind. Just kind of look at it right now. One thing I would like us to look at and think about is understanding that when you don't have representation on the table, like there's this whole Black Lives Matter movement going on right now, and one of the things we're fighting for is representation, because you need somebody that gets it, somebody that gets this demographic of people to be at the table where the decisions are being made. So imagine if your your leadership team or your board of trustees, whatever, they're all adults, and you're strategizing how to pass this, gospel, this church on to the next generation, but there is no next generation on the table. There's no way you're going to make decisions that would enhance or help the process, or that would have the young adults in mind, because you're not in that generation. You don't really understand all the struggles or whatever it is that they deal with, right? And that's fair, that's okay. So that's why we always look for other people that really get it. They're going through it right now. They can give other perspectives that you maybe have never thought about, and they're actually real perspectives that factor a lot into your decision making. But if you don't have those people on the table, there's no way you're going to be able to access that perspective. Another thing I want to say is that when the leadership or board of trustees do not reflect the church demographic, a lot of times young adults just feel like their issues are being relegated to the side because nobody really gets it. Or maybe if there's somebody that kind of sort of almost gets it, they don't really get it like that, so they don't have that sponsor or ally, so their issues just kind of get tossed in the black hole and they just disappear. And rightfully so, the leadership cannot really relate with those issues. Or your young adults might be saying, yo, this is a big deal, but to a leader or like somebody that's not a young adult, that's way above those years, that yes, you've been a young adult before, but not in this time, to you it's not really much of an issue. So that's just one thing I want us to think about and work towards. Number 6, why young adults are leaving the church and what you can do about it. Number 6, again, this comes up a lot with young adults that I talk to. Unnecessary or political hurdles to leadership. Unnecessary or political hurdles to leadership, where they have to go through all of these, like janglova, I call it. Like these process that you're just like, okay, why are we doing this again? Maybe it worked 20 years ago, but really, why are we doing this again? And I feel like a lot of times young adults don't really, especially when they're from the culture that I'm from, when they ask that questions, people think they're being rude or they're challenging authority, but it's not that. They're just trying to understand, like, I don't see how this fits in the grand scheme of things. Like, how does this relate? So, young people honestly do want to serve. They just don't want the extra complications that come with it. Like young adults actually will not chase you around for like positions or anything. Like they just want, like, it's just that's not their driving force. That's not their motivation. They just want to serve. They just want to know that their life they want to be fulfilled. They want to know that their life matters, or whatever it is that they're doing matters in the grand scheme of things. So so I think it's really important to just do away with all the unnecessary processes to leadership, or to even getting simple things done. That can wear any person down. Number 7 of why young adults are leaving the church and what you can do about it. So when there's a culture where creativity or questions are discouraged. So an example is when like young adults come with new ideas, which is like very like bleh. Like it's like I've never heard that before. It's like so different. It's really important for us as leaders to develop experimental mindset. Even though yes, it's never been done before, it just seems very like ooh. If it's within your power as church leaders, please, I would say allow it. Let them experiment, let them be, right? Because they're never going to come up with ideas that match the generations before them, because they are not the generations before them. Like, look, I'm really, really thankful for COVID. That's an odd thing to say, but look, COVID has really pushed a lot of churches to go online, because there was a time where church leaders felt like, why would there be church online? People should come to church in person. And, it seems like it's unserious or backsliding people that go to church online. But when COVID now forced all of our hands to go to church online, look what happened. We're able to spread the gospel even more. We're able to access the gospel whenever, anytime. And I think that's really great. That's a new way of doing things. Technology that was supposed to separate us, or that was said that, separate us, was the thing that was actually bringing us together. So I would say welcome new ideas, have an experimental mindset. Like I always say, as long as it's not against the principles of scripture, not culture. Because a lot of times I feel like some church leaders kind of mix in culture with scriptures, which I don't think is also their fault, because it's possible that's what they were taught. So a lot of times, like, we just need to relearn some things and unlearn some things. So let young adults manifest. Hey, manifest how? That's why we're here. Anyways, regarding questions, I would really like church leaders to understand that, and I think we all do. We all know that we are in a information generation. Like, there's so much information out there, and your young adults are being exposed to a lot. Believe it or not, like, they know some things that you would never think they know. And if you don't encourage them to ask questions, you would not know. You would just think, oh yeah, the things we're teaching them on Sunday. No. That's not cutting it. Like, they can access information just like that online. So when they come asking questions, let them ask questions. They need a safe space to be able to come and ask their questions. And when they're asking questions, I know sometimes I've heard some young adults ask questions and I'm just cringing, like, like, you could have asked that question in a better way. But one thing I've learned is actually that, like, they actually don't realize, like, okay, and maybe it's just a culture also in me, but to them it's like, oh, I'm just asking a question. So again, let them ask the question, then maybe you can correct it later to say, hey, maybe there could have been a different way or better way to lay down that question. So, it's not them understanding, it's not them challenging your authority. Some young adults maybe, and that's just really a really, really big outlier. But like, in general, they're not looking to challenge authority or even the scriptures that they really just want to understand why. Again, young adults like to see how things fit in the grand scheme of things. And I really want to believe Jesus encouraged that. Not want to believe, I see that even with children. The Bible says he that would be, like, we have to come or approach the kingdom of heaven like a child. And what do children do? They're always asking why. Oh, but why? And then you tell them the answer and they say why. Like, they just want to understand. Like, they want you to break it down to the simplest form, and then they can really understand the grand scheme of things. So I would say that. And one thing I want us to keep in mind is when you shut people up, young adults, anybody, and keep shutting them down, they begin to recluse and they begin to just be like, oh, let me just mind my business, until they find another church that seems to allow them to be, that seems to allow them to ask questions, and they have their questions answered. Before you know it, they're gone to the next church. And a lot of times, or sometimes, it doesn't even matter if that church is preaching the true principles of Christianity, if that church is really preaching the true gospel. It's just, hey, like, this space allows me to be, I can ask questions and be open and free, and not feel like, oh, I came to church and what's the point? They would go there. So it's really important that we encourage and allow questions. And sometimes if it's a question that maybe you don't quite understand, you can ask them back a question to say, hey, what are you trying to say? That ask them questions back or help them arrive at the answer. Number 8, which kind of leads or continues from number 7, why young adults are leaving the church and what you can do about it. Number 8 reason is that the leadership is not hot. H-O-T, hot. And why do I say hot? I actually got this from this one preacher. Anyways, hot as in honest, open, and transparent. So hot, honest, open, and transparent. So why do I say that? I'm not saying that a leadership lie, no. But part of being hot is just, again, that transparent part, just lay everything down at the table, like young adults to say, like, break that table, like, let us shatter the table and let everybody that was sitting on the table fall, and then let's rearrange the table back. So young adults see this when they ask questions, especially about sex and sexuality. And there's just that general feeling that, like, our church leaders don't really address it properly. They're not really honest. Like, we know you guys were young adults before. Like, we know you guys definitely had sexual urges. Why are you trying to paint it like you didn't for us? Like, you're not helping us. Like, when you do that, like, be real with us, be honest, be open, be transparent with us. And one of the things I would like church leaders to know is that we don't expect you to know it all. We really don't. If you don't know, just tell us you don't know. And don't try to demonize some things. Like, I find that happens a lot in Christianity, just in general. Like, the things that maybe we don't want our people to do, we demonize it a lot. Like, oh, it happens just a lot with like sex. We demonize it a lot, not knowing that, hey, there's information out there, oh Jesus, about sex. There was even videos for you, right? So just tell us what you don't know and point us in the right direction, like if you don't know it, or say, hey, you know what, let me look into that, I'm not quite sure, or can we all do a study about that and let's see what we can all learn together. We appreciate that. Another area also that we feel like leadership is not always honest, open and transparent is mental health and relationships and abuse, and that's happening a lot. So be honest with us about your pre-Jesus life, because we know some of y'all were just like, you're not as holy as you seem right now. In those days, we know, right? So be honest with us. That helps us to be able to connect with you and say, yo, you get it, right? Don't just tell us, oh, Jesus is so faithful. Yes, we know, we can see, but like, how did you make that transition from that pre-Jesus life to this current Jesus life? So that's one thing. We're interested in how God helped you navigate and overcome challenges as young adults. And even if you're still struggling with some, I think it's okay to be honest. Again, we're human beings. I feel like a lot of times this is why like people, young adults, have this unrealistic expectations of pastors, because they think they don't go through anything. And I feel like, some of that is because the church leaders has kind of fed into that or allowed that to happen by coming off as this perfecty person. But we're not all, like, we all are dealing with some things in our lives. So it just really helps us to know that you can relate with our struggles. And just finally, don't prettify things for us. Like, don't paint it into what it's not. Just be real. Just be hot with us. Be honest, be open, be transparent. Like, we get it. Anyways, that's that. Number 9 for why young adults are leaving the church and what you can do about it. Number 9, this is very subjective, I think. I hear young adults say that a lot, but I personally think it's very subjective, which is number 9 is non-relatable messages. So, a lot of times, like, some pastors will wonder why, like, oh, this one pastor online seems to, like, every young adult is like connecting with them, like, oh, they're so cool, they're so whatever. And a lot of times I go listen to what those pastors are preaching, and I'm like, this is not different from what our pastor preaches. But for some reason, I guess it's the delivery, it's the way that pastor is able to relate with the young adult demographic. Sometimes it's because the pastor himself is a young adult, which brings me back to point number 2 or 3, where I said to develop our own young adults to be those people. Like, I really truly believe that a pastor doesn't always have to be the one preaching every Sunday, especially if your church is like, the demographic is more young adults. Like, develop a person that relates with young adults very well and let them handle that. Like, I don't think the pastor has to be the one doing everything, right? Like, it's fine to delegate some aspects of ministry to other people, understanding that you may be called to a certain set of people, and that's fine, right? So I think it's definitely important for people to get something when they come to church, like get a message that relates to their life that they can work on. But I think at the same time, I'm not saying that the onus lies on the preacher that's delivering the message, because according to the scriptures and the parable of the sower and the seed, we know that a lot of work also lies on the listener. So the young adults in this case, like, the Bible talks about the different soil that the same seed fell on. So the same seed, grew in one soil. It kind of sort of grew in one soil and then died. It almost grew in one soil. It didn't even enter the last soil, right? So we know, seen from that scripture, that parable of the sower and the seed, the onus also lies on the listener, right? So I think this is why I said this one is very, I think this one is very subjective, because it's two ways, right? So non-relatable messages, it's two ways. The onus relies on the preacher or the teacher or the church leader and the young adults to bridge that gap. Anyway, so the final reason why young adults are leaving the church and what you can do about it is there's no reason at all. Yes, you heard me right. There's no reason. It could just be it's time to move on because there's a change in life stage. Like maybe people got a new job in, Yugoslavia, and they have to move, right? Or people maybe just feel like it's time to move to a different church or somewhere else where, they want to serve in a particular ministry, and maybe your church doesn't have it or doesn't cater to that. It could be that. It could be maybe they got married and they're out, right? So it could be just different reasons. One thing I will say though to spiritual leaders and church leaders is to, when situations like that come up, and especially if it's somebody that has served, even the ones that have not served, and they came to tell you that they're moving on, thank them for their service or being able to come here and you've known them for this while, and appreciate them. If you can give them a gift, give them a gift. Thank them for their service and pray for them in the next church that they're going to, that, they'll find fulfillment there and they'll be able to serve, right? One thing that I've heard like some young adults have expressed to me is that, this animosity that comes from leaving their church. And some people still feel like your pastor hasn't released them till now. And that's just not right. That's not even godly. That's not Christianly. We need to just be okay with people leaving. I know as leaders it might be hard to lose your good people, but it's not right. It doesn't sit well when you just alienate them or you develop issues or animosity with them because they're leaving. Bless them, appreciate them. They've done something at your ministry, right? As long as they're not leaving in conflict, as long as they're leaving on good terms. And this is one thing I always tell anybody, young adults, like, don't slam the door when you're leaving. Close it gently. Always leave on good terms, whether it's church, whether it's a friendship, whether it's at work. Leave on good terms. So when you come back, you're able to hold your head up high and just know that you did not mess up the place before you left. So always live on good terms as a young adult. And the flip side is for leaders to encourage people to leave, because what happens is when they see, oh, maybe my pastor has this habit of kind of starting up issues with you when you're about to leave, they just leave quietly. You just notice they're not there anymore. Where is this person? I haven't seen them in a while. Yeah, they've been gone. They left. They get up and go, got up and gone, right? So let's just always remember those things. Sometimes people are just ready to leave, and you even find in some cases people leave and then they come back, right? But if you've started animosity with them, and they're not going to come back even if they feel like, oh, that's where God is leading them to come back to. So let's just trust that at the end of the day, God is the one really that plants us, right? And sometimes we miss our way. We go where God did not plant us, but God in his mercy brings us back and comes to plant us where he knows that we need to be planted for that season of our lives. So thank you so much for coming this far, for watching this far. If you're a church leader, I really appreciate you. I thank God for your life. I thank God for our pastors. Honestly, I always tell young adults, pray for your pastors, man. They're not unicorns. They're not perfect people, because they face so much challenges a lot. Like human beings, they face issues like we do. So really thank God for your life. Thank you for saying yes to ministry, because man, dealing with people is not easy. People will piss you off. People will be people, but you know what? It really takes humility and just that heart for people to deal with people. So thank you for doing that. If you have any maybe comments or suggestions, something maybe I mentioned or something maybe I said, but you feel like I don't have a good grasp on the perspective, or you have a different perspective, please definitely put it in a comment below. Manifest Hub is here to start these conversations to help us understand each other and bridge the gap between the young adults and the adults, church leaders. So definitely love that. If you're a young adult and you feel like maybe I missed something, or there's a question or you have a comment or one of the things I said, I would definitely want to hear below. As always, as is our culture here, we comment with grace and with truth, okay? Let's not come for each other, please. Thank you. Okay. So thank you so much for watching till this very minute. I will see you in the next video. And share this video. It doesn't bite. It's not gonna cost you anything. Just share to your grandparents the way you share your broadcast messages. Let's do it. All right, talk to you later. Bye.